Hello and welcome to another Groundhog Day edition of the Osceola Seminole Sidelines post-game show. I'm Pat Burnham. I'm joined today, as always, by former FSU offensive lineman Mark Salva and Osceola recruiting analyst and Charles Fishbein, as we love to call Fish. Guys, FSU falls to 1-7 after losing to Miami 36-14. I don't think there's any surprise to the way it happened. Florida State obviously could not do anything offensively, 248 total yards. Miami has 445 yards, 230 on the ground, which has been one of Florida State's issues against teams that run the ball well. But I thought the kids fought hard. I think that we got a lot of things to talk about when it comes to the quarterback because there were some interesting decisions made there. But, Mark, we'll just start with you, just your overall reactions to the game.
Unacceptable. It's plain and simple. Unacceptable. Miami never got out of first gear. They didn't sweat us the whole game. I mean, they knew if they scored 2 touchdowns, it was over, essentially, right? And it's just unacceptable. Because here's the thing: there was the offensive game plan was actually pretty decent, and the defensive game plan started out, I was asking Adam to, show some pressure, do some different things on the other side of 50. And he actually did some of that. I mean, he blitzed a little bit and it had some good results. And then, it just, they just started jamming the ball down our throat. But, it's just the game plan offensively wasn't bad. And here's the thing. We just couldn't execute it. There was plays there. There were plays there that, we couldn't get to them. We couldn't, we didn't protect, or the ball wasn't put in the right spot, or, something happened. I mean, we had a good plan. I don't think on both sides of the ball, but, the thing for me was just Miami just never got out of first gear. It was insulting. It really was. And I'm over it. Totally over it. The tackling, 3rd and 22, 3rd and 20, getting a first down, AZ Thomas just diving at a guy's ankles, Look, yeah. When the tush push is your best play and it's averaging 40 yards because it broke for, averaging 20 yards, it broke for 40 and then, got nothing on the goal line, right?
Right.
That's your best running play? Seriously? I mean, it's unacceptable. It's unacceptable to
I wrote down, as I was telling you guys before we got started, I wrote down exactly what you said, because I remember you said it after the Clemson game listen, I don't think Clemson ever was sweating Florida State, and I kind of agree. I think that I think they had a game plan. Now, I think Mario would have liked to put more points on the board. Going for 2 when they scored the 29th point was kind of interesting. I still don't understand that, but it's not for me to understand. But, yeah, I think it's it is at this point.
They really broke a sweat.
I think they knew what they had to do. And listen, I mean, Florida State did get home a lot on defense against Cam Moore, against the pass. He was, I believe, 22 of 35 on the night for 208 yards, 22 of 35, 208 yards. I think Florida State had multiple sacks, 4 sacks, 5 TFLs. So they were disruptive, but the same time, guys, they keep on doing what they do against teams that can run the ball, and they run the ball well, and they gave 224 yards. Listen,
defense had their moments.
Yeah,
you're right. They did have some moments, but third and 20, just that missed tackle. That just drives me nuts. And here's the other thing. So, you know, we lined up in the blitz. The first time we lined up and showed the blitz, we got home. I think it was the first series, maybe the second series. Got home, got the sack. They looked good. Next time we lined up the same way, showed the blitz. They obviously had a plan for it because he immediately rose up and hit that slant, right, to the left. And we got a corner, right, playing, I think it was like 3rd and 10, 11, something like that. You have a corner playing 8, 9, 10 yards off the ball, backing up on that blitz, right? You know you're going to have a free rusher. He's got to get rid of the ball quicker. It's going to be a sack. Why are you backing up on man coverage with that big a cushion? That's crazy.
Yeah, we saw that last week against Duke. I don't understand. I don't understand that either.
And the guy catches it, and all he has to do is he turns up and falls down for a first down.
Yeah.
I mean, that's nuts.
I mean, Mark, the craziest thing is the one thing, and I've always said this, for Florida State to be a lead program again, they have to be dominant on the defensive side of the ball. And when Mickey was there, whether it was Mark Stoops, whether it was Jeremy Pruitt, these guys constantly put pressure on the other team and dictated to them with their personality, with their personnel, with everything. This isn't the Florida State defense that we're accustomed to, where they're aggressive, they get after people. You see 7, 8 guys swarming the ball. You go look at Georgia. That's how Florida State has always played defense. That's the one thing you could count on going into these games. And it's like so demoralizing that this team in 3rd and longs is just brutal. I mean, they are just brutal in long yardage situations. It's just amazing. Like, you could almost bet that the other team is going to convert on a 3rd and 13 because they don't do anything. They don't put that pressure. They don't cause the other team to ever feel uncomfortable. Like, you never felt like Miami was uncomfortable today.
No.
And that's the biggest problem.
Yeah, 8 of 14 fish on 3rd down and 3 of 3 on 4th down. So that's 11 of 17. That's not – listen, and we talked about it in the preview the other day. You were on the preview, right, Fish?
Yes.
On Thursday.
Yes, I was there. I know
they can't stop teams that run the ball well. I mean, they just can't do it. And listen, the thing that's so funny to me is we're sitting here talking about what a great job the defense does when the only time they've done a great job is when they play against bad offensive lines, which was Memphis, Cal, and Duke. And they dominate those guys. But listen, that too many, again, A-gap runs. You're not going to get. And I give them due credit. The secondary played better than I thought they were. They got more pressure on Ward. They did a very good job of not allowing him to run the ball himself. Listen, Martinez had a field day. He averaged 9 yards a run, 15 carries for, I believe, 15 for 148, 9.9 yards. Of course, now listen, he had a 53-yard run, obviously that you have to read into that. But if you're going to take that away from him, then you got to take Luke's 42-yard run away from him on the aforementioned tush push. But listen, the Florida State offense, and some of it's the kind of things that Florida State's had success with, right? I mean, a lot of times last year, Jordan Travis made a lot of their best plays on broken plays, and that's kind of what we saw tonight with Luke and Brock. Luke led the team, 11 rushes for 71 yards. 42 was a long. Brock was 3rd, right behind Toafili, who ran for 26, but Brock had 22 on 5 carries. Listen, they can't run the ball in the design run game, and they can't stop the run when they play against good teams. I mean, it's the same old. And I listen, and do credit. I think they played harder than they usually do. Do you guys doubt? I mean, I thought they gave good effort. Mark, I'm gonna start with you because I see your look on your face.
No, I mean, I think they think they are, right? I think they think they are, and that's part of the problem, right? I mean, Mickey always had that pursuit drill where he'd have the defense, chase, react, line up, react, and run down a cone. And he always told them this. He says, "You need to run faster than you can run." That was the standard. Run faster than you can run. That was his thing. And in other words, you think you're going hard, but you can go harder. And I think these guys think they're playing hard, but they're not. They're not just selling out. I mean, I see too many offensive linemen standing around, after they think the ball should be gone or whatever. I see on the goal line guys just letting the defensive line submarine them, and nobody's moving their feet. I mean, you get on the goal line and you're going to do that tush push. You stick your face mask in the turf, and you get your tail up in the air, and you run your feet until you hit your head on the back of the goalpost, right? And they just lunge out of their stances. That's all they do. They think they're playing hard, but they're not, Pat.
Well, listen, at this point, I think that's as I said after the loaf by Jaylen Brown and trying to track down the Duke cornerback last week. At this point, it's on the coaches. When it comes to that, you're either coaching it or allowing it. And I think this is on as much on at this point. It's on Mike and his staff as much as the players. If you're not going to hold them accountable, and we talked about it on Takeaway Tuesday. You didn't hold the wide receiver accountable for a loaf, and everybody agrees that that's what it was. You put it back in the game, and then you got guys jumping off sides. They're not taken out of the game, and
here's another one. I got another one. So on that, I think it was fourth down, the one where Toafili came in motion and got caught on the snap in the box and couldn't get out, right? I think it was a fourth down. That was a great play. That play was going to be there, and you had Amari Williams coming open too. If Toafili would have got out, he would have been open, but he couldn't get out because he got caught because the ball was snapped early. But the thing was, it was a blitz. They blitzed. There was one linebacker in the box. All right, they were lined up man. They're going to rush 5. They had single safety, 5 wideouts with Toafili coming in and out of motion. Right, so there was only one potential blitzer, and he was sitting right over the outside shoulder, Jacob Rizzi. He was 5 yards deep. And Rizzi and Maurice are double teaming the nose guard. Rizzi's eyes aren't even looking at that guy, and he runs right through the B gap and nails Luke. I mean that's basic. That's basic. That's there's only one potential blitzer. Why is Rizzi looking over to his right when there's the only potential blitzer is right over his left arm B gap? Why? I don't get it. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that happens all the time. We can't pick up a twist for nothing, right? I can't believe they didn't do it more. But we got offensive linemen on different levels, and they run a twist, and everybody gets picked, and then it ends up facing each other because they're turning their butts instead of staying on the same level and trading off twists. We have no idea how to do any of that stuff. And there was some stuff in the running game occasionally. I mean, Toafili, there were some scenes we did some different things in the running game. Thank goodness, right? And there was once, there's a couple things that were there, but it's just too inconsistent. It just is, and it's just bad football. It's bad football. And I'm over it. Make it stop.
Well, it will in about 4 weeks. It will. So listen, Fish, you got anything to add to what Mark said?
I mean, the tough thing is that we know what they are, and then you come out of the game and you go into the game, you're hoping and praying that things change, and nothing we saw tonight isn't what we haven't seen the first 6 or 7 weeks. So it's not like I'm disappointed. It's not a good football team, and bad football teams make bad mistakes. It's hard to watch, and it's like you feel like there's no hope this year, and that's something that you got to hopefully they turn this.
Yeah, well, I do have some good news.
Right now you got to see a lot of young guys today, and I mean that's what you have to hope, that these guys continue to develop and they're there next year and the year after, that this is the future. But this is a bad football team. Like, if you're turning in as a fan or somebody that follows this team and expect them to come out and do anything different than they've done for 7 weeks, and I don't know what to tell you.
It didn't work like that.
What?
What'd you say, Mark?
I said it doesn't work like that. You know, I mean, if you think they're magically just going to start executing at a high level, forget this is who
Yeah.
they are. We're 8 weeks in, man, 8 games in. This is who they are. You
Yeah,
know,
well,
I mean, I saw North Carolina beat Virginia 41-17. All of a sudden, they scored 41 points. Oh boy, you
yeah,
know,
they got hot at the wrong time.
Notre Dame took Navy down. You know, a big score, 50 something to 14, I think. Right? Navy was undefeated. They were playing good football. I mean, it's.
Listen, I watched a ton of college football today and a lot this year, and Florida State's one of the worst teams I've watched. I mean, they're just not a good, like, other teams can function. I'm not saying they're winning games, but even Charlotte today against Memphis had productive. This is the worst team in college football, Charlotte, one of the 5 worst teams, and they're able to have drives where they look functional. Florida State hasn't had that this entire season. It's just a, I don't want to cuss on this show, but it is a
show.
what type. It's a show because it's bad, man. And I don't like, nothing's fixing this. This is something that is going to have to be fixed in the offseason. They have Norvell's going to have a lot of hard and tough decisions to make. But I think when it comes to building this team, maybe I'm crazy. I do think they have enough pieces on offense next year to be a lot better, but they're going to have to fix that O-line. Like, if you're going to invest in something and Luke and Glenn are going to be your future, that they're going to have to invest like, I don't care what they have to pay for guys on the O-line. Like, go out and spend all your NIL just to fix that, because I think the team could be a lot better if they get good at the O-line, or at least be a better line than they are.
Well, listen, I think they would have to be better. I mean, it's hard to believe they could be worse than they are this year. The first team in 70 years in all of college football to have an undefeated regular season and then start the next season 1-7. So they continue to do unprecedented things. There's no doubt about that. Listen, I think we like we've talked about for a while now. The offense was not going to magically get better just because they put Brock or Luke in the game, but I think that is the most interesting talking point coming out of this game, because it certainly looked like Mike had made a decision on who his quarterback was going to be. He said, I did not see what he said to the sideline reporter on ESPN, but she kind of summed it up when they came out of commercial break and said that he was going to roll with the true freshman, which means Luke. So it looked like for a little while there, guys, he had made a decision on Luke and the rest of the season. And then with 4 minutes and 30 seconds to go in the game, or a little bit less than that, when the game is over, he trots Brock back out there for some unknown reason. What do you guys make of what's going on with the quarterbacks? Is he still trying to figure out who he wants to use? Is he trying to play both of them as much as he can? Is he trying to play the portal game because he wants both of them back for the spring?
No, I think the situation changed. It went into halftime. Luke had the only productive drive, that had points. So and the other thing the reporter said was that Luke had command of the offense, which I thought was an interesting thing to say for a true freshman, right? Yeah. Came out at halftime, said we're going to roll with him. And then things got a little squirrely. He had some errant throws, some throws that weren't great. Looked like he was starting to lose it a little bit. And so, you know what? Throw Brock back in there. Maybe, let's see if Brock can. I think it's still open, is my point.
Okay. All right. Fish, what do you think?
I think Luke showed enough, but I still don't think he's ready to be the quarterback next year. I mean, just look at his throwing stats. He looks lost at times. I thought they did some good things. Norvell designed some plays where he could use his arm strength and push the ball down the field, and he made some plays. But, like, you can't be throwing for 40 yards in FSU's offense, and this is going to be the future. Like, I just don't know if he's ready. I think he's the guy in 2026. I don't think he's the guy in 2025. I think that guy is not on the roster right now. The only way one of these two guys could be the quarterback moving forward is if they really build the team around him offensively. They're going to have to put a lot of weapons and help these guys, because Luke still does a lot of things, keeping his eyes down when there's a rush. He doesn't, that stuff is stuff that he'll learn as it, down the road. And I saw enough tonight to be, the runs were nice. You saw that he's a big, long, athletic guy. But if he starts next year with this personnel, I think there's a ceiling with this football team. That's just, maybe there's a ceiling either way, but their goal next year should be to get to like 8-9 wins. And everybody can go, oh, well, that's impossible. College football is not the same. I'm telling you, I think a lot of people, and there's people arguing on the message boards with me now with this, is that like, oh, it's acceptable. None of us are accepting this. Like, let's be honest. All three of us are disgusted what we're seeing. But to sit there and say, oh, it's impossible to turn rosters around when you've seen what Indiana's done, you've seen what these teams do. We do not know what this team's going to look like until they hire new coaches, because that's going to happen. Who those guys bring in, who they bring in the portal, who signs in their class. There's going to be 40 new players on this football team when spring football starts. So anybody that could sit there and predict next year with this football team, please tell me what they're going to do. I'll go to Vegas now and bet the over-under. You can't predict what's going to happen year to year now. I'm telling you, you are going to see more teams like Florida State that win 10, 11 games 1 year, that are portal heavy, that are going to crash down back to earth. Maybe not to this level, but they'll be sub 500 the next. I mean, this is new territory, but I just think it's part of college football now. And listen, Pat, that 3-4 years ago, I was on the bandwagon, and I was on the bandwagon saying not sustainable. I was the first one, and I've been saying it over and over, and everybody, because Florida State was winning, oh, the portal's great, you don't need high school recruiting. I said, it's not sustainable. You go look, you can't have 75% of your recruiting classes for 3 years not be on campus any longer and think that something like this is not possible. So, hey, if everybody else has, thinks that you can continue to recruit like that and be this way, I think you're going to see more ups and downs, not only at Florida State but other programs as well.
Well, I agree with you that the volatility due to the portal is going to be something that you have to pay attention to moving forward. But I do think that Florida State's going to have to go really, really portal heavy this class. But I also agree now that everyone's kind of caught up with the portal, but the portal's more diluted than it ever has been or will be. And listen, and to your point, Fish, you're talking about bringing guys in through the portal. We haven't even talked about what's going to go out through the portal. So knowing what this roster is going to look like next year is going to be very interesting as once December 8th or 9th, whenever the portal opens up, because, we're sitting here trying to build whatever our preconceived notions are for next year based off who we think is coming back, and we don't know who is coming back. But yeah, listen, I don't think it. I mean, we've already said it. What's going on at Florida State is unacceptable. But I don't think. Listen, we didn't expect them to win this game, so I'm not going to continue just to go down this rabbit hole of. And Brendan, you're right. It starts at the top. Mike is to blame, and then it goes down from there. But we knew this coming into this game that this was going to be a hard game to win, and all the little things that we've seen so far. For the most part, crept back up. Bad run defense against a team that can run it, and an offense that can't move the ball. So,
how about subbing when they don't sub and getting a illegal substitution penalty? Right, guys running off the field, and they didn't even sub, so they snapped the ball, and we got 12, 13 guys on the field. I mean, that's the kind of crap that bad football team. I mean, that's unacceptable. I mean, there's just a long distinguished list of stupid stuff that this team does that is I mean, we don't give ourselves a chance because we beat ourselves before we even step on the field. I mean, of course Miami didn't sweat us, right? We have this season is a long and distinguished history of ineptitude.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just sit back and let it happen. That's basically what they did. Let's just sit back and let it happen. Their quarterbacks can't throw. They can't run the ball. and defense can't tackle. So you know what? We'll just kind of play. We'll have a little scrimmage out here and win by 30. Boom. There you go.
Yeah. Well, listen, it was going to be a hard road to hoe. We knew that coming in, and it was. Listen, optically, it looked worse as the game went on. I think everybody was. I know I was at the Osceola watch party for the first half of the game, and they were just happy. It was 17-7 at halftime. So
right.
But that's not how obviously you and Fish and I view the game. Listen, we do have a couple of questions. One from Julie Williamson. She wants to know who is one player each of you think we have to keep in the offseason when the portal opens in December. One player that you think we need to keep. Who would it be, Fish?
Edwin Joseph.
If you had to pick one.
Edwin Joseph. That joker will strike you. He comes running up and he'll hit you. He'll tackle.
Yeah,
I think he ran past Shaim one time and tackled somebody. Ran right past him.
Yeah. He did. Yeah, I like Edwin. I like Edwin a lot. I don't know if Farmer and Daryl Jackson have some type of deal where one will only play each game because did Farmer play tonight? I don't. I mean, like I saw Daryl Jackson.
I didn't notice Farmer.
Honestly, did Farmer make a play? Like I've said all along that I'd like to, have one of those guys, preferably Daryl Jackson, move on and somehow convince Farmer to stay one more year because I think he's kind of like getting a kid in a top end recruit out of high school right now. It'd be great to keep him and Daniel Lyons. Definitely Farmer would be my guy because D tackles it's not like they're recruiting them really well right now. And if you have one on your roster that you could kind of convince to stay one more year, it'd be good. So that'd be my guy.
If he played, he did not register a stat. I can tell you that.
If he played, I got really bad vision because I don't remember seeing him play.
I thought the same thing. I'm like, where is Josh Farmer?
Yeah, I did too, but I thought maybe it was just because Six had made some really good plays, and sometimes I can't tell those two cats apart on television. But listen, the guy I would keep
Pat Payton too.
I'd keep Amari Williams.
Yeah,
you got to keep him here.
Yeah, Amari. Listen, Amari is going to be really good. I do want to give one person credit because I did bash him a lot. I thought Omar Graham did show out.
Yeah,
he made some plays. He looks like he's getting better. That's a kid. Listen, I wasn't a huge fan of him all year, but when guys work hard, it shows you that you can go out there and still make plays within a scheme if you're putting in the work. He's somebody that has put in the work. It shows, and he deserves a.
That's back to back for him, right? I mean, he had a good game last game too, so he had back to back. That play he made on Restrepo on the end zone was really, really good.
Yeah.
I mean,
went back in a coverage, knocked the ball down. I mean, he I think he had a sack. I mean, he played well,
Yeah, so, he had that. Officially, they haven't. I mean, which these stats really don't count. The coaches will grade it, but he had 4 total tackles, 1 TFL, 1 pass breakup, 1 quarterback hurry. But yeah, I agree with you guys. He's a guy that is starting to prove me wrong for sure. Because when we first started the season, I thought he was going to be a guy that was going to hurt Florida State. He has gotten better and better and had his best 2 games of his career, the last 2 games. And listen, I think you got to start looking for things to build off of. And I think that's one of the things. Listen, this season is a loss. There's no bowl game now. Not that there was going to be before tonight, but listen, I think you got to start looking at the little things like Omar Graham and having a good game, and Edwin Joseph, as we've talked about. The one guy I didn't see in the game was Andre Otto Fish. I saw Keandre Jones back in the ball game, which I was a little bit surprised to see. I know Mark was not very happy about that. Not that.
I mean, Rizzi. I'd have to go back and look. I know he played in the game. I thought they did early on. The O-line held up. It was one of their better games early on. Now I'd have to go back and look later in the game. It seemed like they were getting more pressure, but that happens when you get behind and you have to start passing more. But it did seem like there was things there a little better this week. That's not saying much, but that they were actually better this week than
Yeah,
they
no,
were.
there was. They
Yeah.
schemed up
Yeah.
the running game halfway decent, and I know I got on Rizzy about that pass pro, and that's not on. I got to imagine that's not on him. He's doing probably what he was told, but he wasn't awful. You know what I mean? I mean, he was in the right spots, and really, Rob Scott gutted it out pretty decent. You know, I mean, no, we didn't run the ball really well, but I think Rob Scott, gutted it out. Rizzy wasn't awful. Maurice is a shadow of his former self. You know,
he just can't stay healthy, and
I'm sure he's not. You know, and honestly, I think that Byers is hot and cold. You know, but collectively, it's just not very good.
How many games do they have left?
4.
All right, so these 4 games really, you're going to find out who's like. There's roster cuts coming, man. I mean, honestly, this is basically the next 4 games is going to determine a lot of kids' fate on this roster, whether they're going to be back next year or not. Because I'm sure there's going to be some discussions with some guys. Hey, listen, you know what? We're going to move on from you. It may be best for you to hit the portal and find another school. But I think these next 4 games, forget the wins or losses, as you're building for the future. You got to find out what you have. I mean, these are their bowl practices, and these are their bowl.
I think they've started to do that. We saw Danzy get in the game. Obviously, he played the 2 quarterbacks. Now, I think the interesting question, and it was brought up on the thread. Somebody said, well, they thought he pulled Luke late in the 4th quarter so he didn't get hurt. I don't know if I believe that's why he did it, but all right. So Luke has played in 2 games, Mark and Fish. Do you play him in the last 4? You go ahead and burn the red shirt. And how much do you think that that's going to be determined by who Mike feels is the quarterback of the future?
Yeah, the reason you're going to play him is because if you could always take that red shirt next year. I mean, you got to see what you have. If he doesn't work out and you still think he's the future, you could red shirt him next year. You have you bring in a transfer kid. You have the kid from JUCO, and then you have Trammell. You have 3 guys that you could work with next year. You have options. They're not limited to I believe you play him, see what you have. He needs experience. He needs to learn how to keep his. I'm telling you, like the first thing he does when the pressure comes, he has his eyes down and he's looking to run or he's trying. That's stuff that he really needs to work on, and that's not going to happen in practice where you say they don't hit or do any live stuff. That's going to come in these games where he actually sees live flying bullets. So it'd be best for him to play in these last 4. Who cares about the red shirt? They could always take that next year if they determine that Luke's not the guy next year.
Well, and with the way quarterbacks transfer these days, what if you redshirted him for somebody else, probably, right?
Yeah.
Well,
and to your point about him looking down, did you guys see on that wheel route with Toe Philly that he got held? How Portier wide open? They showed it on the replay. You know, it was a 4th down, and we tried to run Toe Philly on that wheel route down the right sideline, and he got held, but they didn't call it. You guys, I mean, and if Luke just looks over here, Portier is uncovered. It was 4th down. Oh.
There was plays there to be made. I mean, the one thing, like we said, this was probably one of Mike's better play callers calling games this year. The plays were there. They had opportunities. It's just you have a quarterback that really. I remember what's his name. The one guy, Sam Darnold, said he was seeing ghosts. I think this kid was seeing ghosts at times. Like he needs.
Which one, Luke or Brock?
I think both. Listen, I think both of them. It's just
they're shell shocked.
Yeah, I mean, you got to. I just think you look. Who were over the last few years? The teams that had a lot of success, whether it was Jordan with FSU or you look this year with Cam Ward. Most of these teams that have had success, the quarterbacks have a lot of experience. A lot of the teams that are making the playoffs, those guys have had. You go look at Jaden Daniels; he had like 40. Bo Nix had like 40, 50 starts. These guys don't even have a full season of starting under their belt. So, like, you got to get. I just think people sit there and they see like a Jameis or they see some of these guys that are really, really good. Those are the few and far between. There's very few of those elite guys that could come in early on and dominate. Most guys, and that's you look at Luke and you look at Brock. I still think Brock could be a pretty good quarterback in college in the right scheme. I don't think he's terrible. Like I think that these guys have been put in a bad position this year. First off, you know as well as I do what's important for a young quarterback: a run game. A run game can really help a young quarterback. What can also help? Tight ends. They're starting 2 tight ends. We don't even know if these guys are running the right routes half the time or if they're blocking correctly. So there are things that these guys are dealing with. There's a lot there. I believe that both of these guys could be pretty good quarterbacks, whether it's here or somewhere else. But there's still a lot of work to be done for both of them. I mean,
it's really not fair to evaluate these 2 guys on this team. You're right, Fish. They have no support. I mean, the whole offense is predicated on them making a play, and usually making a play under duress in a tight window, may or may not catch the ball, no running game, protection's 50-50. I mean, it's all on them, and it's a heck of a spot to be for a young quarterback who has no experience. Yeah. So you can't evaluate these 2 kids on what's going on right now.
I mean, Mark, as good as Cam Ward is, I don't know how many years he did at Incarnate Word, and then he played at Washington State. This kid's probably got at least 50 starts in his career. Those matter. Those matter. I have a friend I wanted to bring this up real quick. I had a friend that broke down all the team players, and last year one of the things that was most impressive about Florida State was how many snaps Florida State had compared to Miami and Florida and a lot of the teams. That's why that team was so talented last year too, is they had a ton of snaps, experience across the board from O-line, D-line, receivers, running backs. This year, you got a young team and you got some hodgepodge. It's like it's a bowl of crap.
Here's the thing, the guys that we do have that have a lot of snaps are playing terribly.
Yeah,
the offensive lines, some of those defensive linemen. I mean, some guys in the secondary. I mean, those guys have a lot of snaps. Yeah. And they're not playing real well. So
no, they're not.
I hear what you're saying, but
to your point, you mentioned a couple things, Fish. You've mentioned that maybe they need to bring in another transfer quarterback, but that offsets the other point you made in that they're not getting starts, they're not getting reps. And I agree with what one of the guys said, cool, man, until they fix the line of scrimmage, it's going to be the same old, and that's what they've got to do. But I agree with you. Listen, I wish every kid on the team played as hard as Brock did when he's in the game. Now, he may be flawed as a quarterback, and he is young, and so is Luke, but I think that's the big decision for Mike to make in the offseason, because I would almost guarantee you this: if he brings in another portal quarterback and goes bridge for the second time in 2 years, you're losing at least one of those guys, if not both of them.
Yeah, I think though when you go 2 and most likely 2-10, I don't think Mike's gonna have a choice. Like this, unless he believes one of these guys can win him 8 games next year, and I don't know how he could believe that with the personnel that they have. Then
here's the thing, though, Fish.
He's going to have to bring a quarterback in that he believes can win some games, because
here's the thing.
He's a little pressure on him, and I don't. That's not for me.
Here's the thing, Fish. We have limited. An elite quarterback is going to take a lot of NIL. I mean, I don't know what Cam Ward signed for. You kind of heard rumors. It's a lot of money. We have a finite pot of money with the issues we have throughout the team. You said it earlier. We got to shore up we need to really invest on the offensive line, because we have some good backs. We have really good backs, I think. Yeah. I think Mekhi Danzy is going to be fine. Cam Davis is going to be fine. Singleton is a good back. If we shore up the offensive line and supplement the defense, we need to invest heavily to get the premium players in those positions. Yeah, we've got 2 quarterbacks who are young, who I think could be decent if the surrounding cast, if they're given an opportunity to have a clean pocket and to have a productive running game, to see what they can do. Yeah. Like I said before, right now it's all on them, and that's just not a good place to be for those guys.
I think a lot of people think that maybe they're not that good, but I honestly, I'm very critical with quarterbacks. I just am. Always have been. I think both of them have the ability. You can win a lot of football games with these two guys. Can you win a playoff game? That's not what you're building with these two right now. You're building to build that culture back, that winning culture. These two guys you can win a lot of ball games with the right personnel around them. Like,
yeah, 100%.
Look, the O-line has to be a major priority out of the portal, and they have to get guys that are quality players that maybe they're not the most gifted athletically, but mentally they're like these guys. You talked about it. This is it seems like this team's very low football IQ. I mean, it starts up front. They got to go get some guys. Listen, Dylan Gibbons wasn't the most gifted athletic guy, but he knew what to do. And he didn't force you to. Not only did he make a mistake that now doubled down and helped hurt another guy next to him, he solidified part of that line. And they need guys like, they're not going to have to spend millions of dollars on the Dylan Gibbons of the world. They got to go find those type of guys that have had a lot of snaps or played a lot, and that guy can go and do it for you,
Yeah, listen, I think they've got to do a better job of evaluation of the portal this year than they did last year. And listen, I do think they've got an uphill battle because of what I've said. The portal's going to be diluted because everybody's doing it now. There's nobody not doing it outside of Clemson, and even Clemson tried to do it and they didn't sign anybody. But James, yeah, listen, we talked about it all week. There's going to be changes on the coaching staff. You can almost guarantee yourself that. I mean, Mike does have the money to say no. We're not going to do that. There's no doubt about that. But I do think he will. I think there are people that will demand that changes are coming. We've talked about it. Listen, I don't remember Mike saying that this was the best offensive line he's ever had. But what he did say was this is the strongest, fastest, most explosive team he's ever had, and that has not bared itself out. But yeah, I think you're going to see the changes, and it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when and who, and that's really no pleasure in talking about that. But we've got 5 weeks to talk about it. I don't want to talk it to death tonight, but I think what we're talking about is things that Mike can control with or without whoever's on the staff coming back, and that's who they bring into this program to play on the field.
There's got to be some accountability. This is the worst offense in Power 4 football by every objective measure.
Yes, there's no doubt.
So there has to be accountability for that. I
mean, I think we all agree defensively you can fix that. And I always go back to Bobby's final year, and then they weren't very good, and then Stoops came in and he fixed the defense. I think the defense could be fixed quicker, but I think that won't be a problem. Offensively, they've got a lot of work to do. And I think you could do it, especially with the portal. And I'm not a fan of it. I'm being a little hypocritical here, but I think they have no choice. Like, they have to get better up. Like, their O-line is the biggest disappointment, and why they're having their worst season in
well,
time.
And the only thing I'm going to say is I think that the defense looks better better than it really is in contrast to what we're seeing on offense, right? Because you go there, they don't tackle. They still can't stop the run, and a lot of stopping. I mean, I know some of it's scheme, but a lot of it's effort and want to, and trying to slow down somebody from running the ball. And listen, we see the figure 8 tackling drill all the time on social media at practice. They are rewarding and giving positive reinforcement to the guys' arm tackling. I don't think Fish. I think you've. And I think a lot of it's going to depend on who's back on this team as to how good they can be on defense last year or next year compared to this year. But I do think one of the reasons that people are so positive about the defense that just gave up 215 yards rushing. I'm sorry, 230 rushing, 215 passing is because compared to what the offense is doing, they look really good, but they look really good against bad offenses. Go back to Memphis, who struggles, is not a very good football team. You and I were talking about them today, Cal and Duke.
But let me ask you something, you guys. How many times this year has FSU started in the other team's 25 or 30 because of a sack or a turnover? Like, like sometimes like the defense is. I mean, even in some of the you go back to the one season where Drew played. And they beat Miami, I think 10-7. That defense was able to dominate at times. Like sometimes you could win games by having a dominant defense. And this team, if they had a dominant defense this year and they were getting turnovers, I think they could have won probably 2 or 3 more games just by having a defense that creates and causes chaos. You don't see guys just like all running to you.
But you know what causes chaos when you got 11 guys that play like their hair's on fire, play discipline, and they run to the ball as a group. And listen, they don't arm tackle. I'm just saying. I think
part of it, though, Pat. I think part of it is as a defense, you know if you give up 2 scores, it's over. Yeah. Right. And look, I'll give them a little bit of credit. Cam Ward, guys were covered. I mean, he just wasn't hitting a bunch of wide open guys all night. You know, there were some, but I mean, they were covered pretty well. He was getting some pressure, you know, and running around and whatnot. And I think they did a decent job at times, but they couldn't stop the run. Right. And when it's a critical time, that, you know, those third and 20s, you know, they let those go. Look, they kicked how many field goals? 4 or 5? 4 field goals?
They kicked a lot.
I'm not sure, but I can't.
Yeah, you know, and part of that was them, you know, blowing up holding calls and whatnot. Some of that was sacks and you know, getting them in long down and distances, which we haven't done very much. 3 field goals. Yeah. You know, so it could have got out of hand a lot worse real quick. And so to the defense's credit, they kept them out of the end zone.
They did that against Clemson too, but it doesn't like if you know
it's being inept, it's got to be disheartening, and it's got to be after a while. I'm sure the defense is like, you know, gets old, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, listen, there's going to be some, as you guys, as we've talked about, there's going to be some interesting decisions that Mike has to make, and I think it's going to affect both sides of the ball at the end of the day. And I think, listen, I think that there's,
Brendan's right. Brendan's right too. We don't get turnovers. There was ball on the ground once, and there was an errant pass that would look like it could have. I think it was Ashton Barker maybe, or. Could have got it if he was, you know, a little closer. But when's the last time we got a turnover on defense? I can't even remember.
A pick 6.
Yeah.
A sack, a fumble, a pickup.
When?
Deloche against Clemson last year, I think.
Is that the last turnover we've had?
No, well, Cryer had it
against
Memphis.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not sure there's been one other than that. There hasn't been a lot, that's for sure. And listen, as David Hell talked about in one of his famous threads this week, a lot of that has to do with the fact that Florida State is always playing from behind, and offenses can kind of play ball security, right? They're not putting the ball in the air as where most of your turnovers are going to happen, right? You're going to probably throw interceptions. You're already going to fumble the ball, and teams aren't having to throw the ball to beat Florida State.
Or you play man coverage 10 yards off and back up on a 6-man blitz.
Well, that's why I say some of the things we're talking about on defense are glossed over a little bit because of what's going on offense. It's so historically bad. The defense looks good in comparison, and I'm not sure that they're listen, I'll say it. Anytime any one offense that plays against Florida State can do any one thing well, they're going to beat Florida State. A one-dimensional football team on offense can beat Florida State. They have to be very bad. Duke couldn't do anything. Cal couldn't do anything. And Memphis couldn't do anything. And they're not good offenses overall if you go back and look at the season. So I'm just saying that when it comes to playing against good football teams, the defense can be as bad in critical times as the offense is the entire time.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, listen, we got plenty of time to talk about this.
We
got the next 4 weeks, and we'll be back on Monday, but we did want to jump on here and kind of do a group therapy session of the Osceola Seminole Sidelines. We'll be back on Monday night at 6 p.m. to talk about what Mike Norvell had to say not only tonight after the game, but he will have his press conference with the local media on Monday, as will the coordinators. So we will have some follow-up with that. We will also have a chance to go back and rewatch this game and offer some more thoughts on what we saw, good and bad, and we will do that. We'll start that tomorrow on Second Look Sunday, but we'll be back Monday at 6 p.m. If you're not a subscriber to the Osceola, please go to theosceola.com or floridastate.rivals.com. Bob Ferrante and Kurt Weiler are both in Miami tonight, and they will have their post-game stories up at theosceola.com, and if they're not already on there, they will be up shortly, and they will obviously have video from Mike Norvell's press conference. And if you're not a subscriber to the Osceola YouTube channel, please subscribe now and hit the notification button so that you will know when we are doing these things live or taped, and you will still get a notification. But guys, another tough post game show. We were hoping for the impossible. It didn't happen, but we will be back here next week after the North Carolina game. Hey, I got some good news for you guys. I checked again just to make sure it was still true. Mac Brown has never beaten Florida State. So, Mark, when you're having your bourbon before you go to bed,
Duke never beat Florida State. Let's stop going over these things.
Have a positive thought in your head tonight, Mark. Have a positive thought in your head.
And no team's ever gone 1-7 after going undefeated in 70 years. So,
well, not for 70 years. Not for 70 years, Mark.
Yeah.
Huh?
Not for 70 years. 71 years ago, somebody did go undefeated the year before and then go 1-7.
Right.
So I'm just saying it could be worse. All right, guys, y'all enjoy the rest of your night. I'm gonna go watch Colorado and Cincinnati.
All right.
All right, boys. Y'all have a great night.
Take it easy.
Go Dolls.